the Meraki dual boiler going to dethrone the Barista Express as the go-to all-in-one espresso machine. After a few weeks with the prototype, I'm seriously optimistic about this very ambitious machine and a little concerned about some of the prototype's shortcomings, and let me tell you why. We see a lot of high-end marketing for coffee gear coming up these days, and the first question I had when I saw the Meraki was, is this going to be a cash grab piece of low-quality tech, right? This is a real concern a lot of people instinctively have when we see really sleek marketing. But after seeing it and using it for the last few weeks, the answer is definitely no. This is not a cash grab. It does have some serious issues that I will address in the video, but there are just way too many thoughtful inclusions and design choices that tell me that the people who made this know what people who are into espresso want, and they made a machine that gives a lot of the features that you would want in a home espresso machine for a frankly insane price. Because from what I've heard, they are planning their crowdfunding launch at between $1,050 and $1,200 US. But the question is whether they're going to be able to pull off their ambitious spec at this price. I'm going to prefix this video with a disclosure that this is a beta prototype unit. There are some serious issues to be fixed, and I've already detailed that in an email with my contact at Meraki. Oh, that's not good. So though I can't tell you how good the fixes are because I haven't seen them yet, I will tell you what I think this machine needs to do to become one of the most exciting pieces of espresso gear to come out in the last few years. I have no affiliation with the company and no control over what changes they make to this unit, but I want to thank them for sending me a prototype and then another one after I had an issue with the first one so I could share this video with you all. I hope you find it useful and informative, and if you do, I'd appreciate a sub and a like, and feel free to ask any questions in the comments and I'll try to answer them. So what does the Meraki do right? And this is a pretty decent list to start off with. Let me just switch it on. When it comes to the basics of making espresso, the Meraki has everything you'd expect from a prosumer espresso machine, and a few extras too. The big deal is that this is a dual boiler machine with a rotary pump. Rotary pumps are much more expensive components than vibration pumps, but they give much more consistent pressure, better temperatures, and they are much quieter. They're basically better in every way, and in my experience they make a richer, more balanced espresso. Here you have the screen which controls all of your operations, and also the physical paddles on the group head and the steam to initiate those. Although I tend to use the brew control within the UI, as you can control the desired brew weight, which is connected to the scale under the group. Temperature control in 1 degree increments is here, and when you start pulling the shot, you get this nice pull up of the current weight and shot timer. Other machines can do shots by weight, but it's more often done by volume or time, which is not particularly accurate, especially when changing beans, because different amounts of water can get through the coffee puck at different total volumes. And with timers, you're just guessing unless you can do identical grinds and puck prep every time. Most machines don't have this scale, and very few have the ability to connect via Bluetooth to a scale like the Akai Luna, which would give you the ability to control for weight. So already, this is above what I think most would expect for a machine of this price and class, and I really like not having to pay as much attention to the shot while I maybe steam some milk for a flat white and just let the machine do its thing. And another thing is how the platform over the scale lets water run off into the drip tray, so you can easily flush the group without having to move the scale out of the way. This is a very clean and elegant design, and I like it a lot. I'll talk more about the paddles later on because there are definitely some issues, but part of me thought that this design over the group head looks like it should be for flow control. This unit doesn't have this unfortunately, but if a later iteration upgrades this to a flow control paddle, that would be pretty insane. The other big feature in this all-in-one is obviously the built-in grinder made in collaboration with Timemore. I'm not going to tell you that it's an incredible grinder, but it does do a good job, especially with medium roasts. It's a 48mm conical burr with a hopper and a fairly accurate scale to enable grind by weight, and I found that the shots that I've been getting are overall very good. Definitely more on the side of thick, syrupy shots, and while they are lacking a little clarity, I wouldn't necessarily call this a criticism, as it's what you would expect from a conical burr grinder. It's definitely not on the level of something like the Niche Zero, but I would say it's a cut above the fellow Opus I reviewed last year, which itself is a $200 standalone grinder. The grinder's stepped, which isn't ideal with a limited range for adjustment, but it does have an ionizer to help prevent coffee from getting clogged up in the chute by static. I generally use single dose grinders as I like to be precise and switch up beans frequently, but for most people I think being able to just press one button and have the right dose come out is perfect for a machine like this. The scale is accurate and it stops before it reaches the right number, so it's generally within 0.1 and 0.2 of the actual weight you want. And the dosing cup is also a nice quality metal. It looks good and it has magnets so it always stays right under the chute. And you should all know by now that I love magnets in coffee gear. On top of that, Meraki has put in an NFC chip reader in the top of the machine here to read the details of a coffee bean and give specific adjustments like dose, grind, and temperature recommendations, all within the UI. For now, of course, I've only seen Meraki beans use this, but with other machines like XBloom using this kind of hand-holding technology, I expect we may see some roasters use this chip tech to help people with machines like this to get the best out of their coffee. It doesn't force you to use their recommendation, simply marking them with a star so you can choose to use it or do your own thing if you want to experiment. And you may want to, as the recommendations are a bit hit and miss for me. I've had 2 of these machines now as something went wrong with the steam arm on my first machine, and the first one, the dial-in recommendations were pretty much spot on, but the second one I've had to grind 3 or 4 steps finer than the recommended settings. Now the grinder does struggle a bit at the finer end for lighter roasts that I would say are becoming more popular in the specialty space. I was grinding at about a 3 for this nice light roasted El Salvador that I got from Blue Hour, but Meraki has told me that they are adjusting the grinder for optimal grind sizes and consistency between machines, so expect this to change at least a little bit before the final version. But generally speaking, I think it's a thoughtful and good inclusion to have things like a range where you might expect to dial in a coffee. If it works and the kinks are ironed out, it might really help people, especially those who are new to coffee, to dial in their espresso much better and waste fewer coffee beans. But a lot is going to depend on whether roasters adopt an extra expense of putting these chips in their bag. I don't know how likely that is, but I guess we'll see if the machine takes off in popularity. It could be worth it for roasters to advertise that they have a Meraki profile chip to use with this machine. One of the most important inclusions is this screen, which gives you control over the different elements of this machine. You can see here on the top screen, the machine boots to a sort of triangle of brew, steam, and grind controls, which form the hub of your main control for the machine. Software interfaces are very often an issue in espresso machines. Either the information isn't given in a comfortable way, or the software has glitches or too many steps, or it's poorly integrated. But the Meraki has probably the best UI I've ever used in a coffee machine. It's simple, it gives you exactly the information you need when you need it, and it has very low number of steps to get to what you need to get to. The touchscreen is very reactive, even better than screens in much more expensive machines I've used. And it feels more like a smartphone screen in terms of delay, which it has very little of. More importantly, the UI is really clean, with gestures familiar to anyone who has a smartphone, like dragging down from the top to get to the settings. Here you'll find icons for reverting to a neutral bean after using a Meraki bag NFC chip, or for using the scale independently or setting up sleep-wake timers. I haven't really needed those as the machine heats up quite quickly, and I usually just use my smart plug to wake the machine up when I get out of bed. Turn on my espresso machine. The time it takes to heat up is even displayed here in the UI with a ring around the brew and steam. I time the brew being ready after around 4 minutes and the steam ready after 7. And while I wouldn't necessarily say that the steam is at full power after that, it does work by then, which is not too long to wait in my opinion. If I had one criticism, it would be that some of the UI elements don't really need their own screen and could reduce one step by making it all just slide up and down from their main screens. But this is a very small complaint, and the UI is really just one of the best that I've seen in any coffee gear. Now getting to the accessories included. There is a lot in the box, and it looks like Meraki wants you to be able to open this up and have literally everything you need to make a good coffee. There's a small 450mm jug, a portafilter which has a spout attachment like some other popular machines recently, and a tamp station with a distributor and a full metal tamp, a blind disc for back flushing, and a cloth for wiping your steam wand. In my opinion, the tamp station here is not all that nice, and one of the cheapest feeling parts of this setup. It's made of a hollow plastic and just feels a bit like an afterthought, which is a shame because both the distributor and tamp feel very premium and well made. I would say that the distributor is also unnecessary. These days I don't generally use one, as using a WDT tool with a little knock on the table tends to distribute much better, after which you can tamp. It's quite a heavy distributor as well, so I feel like the cost of this could be saved and used in other important parts of the package here. I do really like the reservoir in the back as well, which holds 2 liters when it's full, works well, and has a built-in spot for a filter, though I would have really liked to see the option to plumb this in, especially now that I have a flow jet built into my bench. I also probably won't be buying replacements, as I use water solutions like third wave water with proper combinations for espresso, but for people who don't want to go down that rabbit hole, at least having the option for a filter will reduce wear and calcification on the boilers. And here's a curious one. When I first went to hit that hot water dispenser button, I assumed it would come out of the steam wand as it does on many other machines. But it's actually this tiny little hole behind the group that ejects the hot water right out into the cup. So if you want to make an Americano, the hot water tap is right here. I don't have Americanos, but I think this is a really nice inclusion that's elegantly integrated into the system. Now onto something that I care about a lot more than most people in espresso machines, and that's steam power. For me, the steam power on this machine is excellent, much better than I expected. The boiler gives you control over both the power and the temperature, and at max on both, it is phenomenal, almost blowing the milk out of the jug. It's certainly too strong for the small jug included, but it's perfect for the 600ml jugs that I tend to use for latte art. It's easy to get a roll going and get silky smooth milk. The steam holes in the tip are an odd arrangement I haven't seen before though, with a 3-hole tip all facing forward rather than out to the sides. But this means you can use the standard steam wand position that I've talked about in other videos to get a very nice roll easily, enough for advanced latte art designs. The Cool Touch steam arm is a nice inclusion as well that I think should be standard on all modern espresso machines. One of my favourite inclusions is a temperature sensor right in the tip. I've been accused of underheating my milk for coffee drinks before. I'm not proud of this, but when I first opened my cafe, my sister wasn't happy with how I steamed my milk for drinks and made me use a thermometer for every drink I made until I could properly judge with a touch test. Don't judge me, I like my lattes cool so the foam doesn't get all bubbly, and I usually drink it within 30 seconds anyway. When you use the steam, the temperature reading at the tip here is shown on the screen, and what's particularly nice is that if you're steaming and pulling a shot at the same time, the temperature pops up on the top of the screen while your shot information stays at the bottom. Another home run for this great UI. Purging the steam wand after doing your milk into the drip tray is good, and the design of the drip tray stops liquid from spraying up, but it is a little bit of faff to clean and disassemble. First you have to remove the metal grate, then pull out the hard plastic insert, then clean all 3 before putting them back together. The metal grate is quite sensitive to the lock-in location, snapping into place with maybe less than a millimeter of tolerance. In the end, it looks good and slides into place in the body of the machine well, but proper cleaning is a bit more faff than with other machines. I'm not saying that this is bad overall. Drip trays are often a problem, and I do definitely prefer this to something like my Oscar II, where the drip tray is just a wire mesh. So if there's any water in there at all, it tends to spray up. Now so far you might be listening and thinking that for the price they're suggesting for the crowdfunding campaign at only 1,050 USD, this is an insane value proposition. And you'd be right, even the expected final retail price of 1,800 USD, this feature set still comes toe to toe with more expensive machines. But while on paper it's excellent, there are some serious issues with the prototype I got, and I've spoken to a few other creators who have had experimental units as well, and we've all had issues with it. The first problem I had was with the portafilter, probably the biggest offender. The prototype I got is a cheap plastic, but my buddy Zach Goldman at Espresso on Instagram posted a short video of the new portafilter that's much nicer and uses wood for the handle. In the one I got, they put the screw that locks the handle into the portafilter head on the wrong side. This meant that the handle had next to no structural integrity, and both of the ones I had have broken easily within the first few days of use. Oh, that's not good. And because the screw's on the wrong side, I couldn't even switch it out for a different portafilter handle. It's a little weird that they made this mistake in the first place, but I'm glad to see a major improvement to the handle because you're using this part probably the most of anything on the machine, so it should be nice to hold and feel solid and premium. What I'm not sure about how they will change is that the group head doesn't seem to accept any of the other portafilters that I have. I have this very nice Normcore one I got for the Flare 58 that looks absolutely gorgeous in black, but it didn't fit. This eye cape one kind of fit, but because of the straight fins on the normal one, where this one has a slight taper, the pressure kind of unravels it a little bit as the shot's coming out, causing it to leak halfway through the shot if I don't brace it. Again, Meraki are changing the design of the group head, and they're switching from aluminium to stainless steel for the next iteration. So I hope to get access to that to see the full final retail version for a review in the future. But it's not only the portafilter that has build quality issues. Some of these plasticky feeling parts contrast strongly with the generally nice feeling build of the rest of the machine. This paddle for the brew head is probably the part that makes me feel this the most. It doesn't really seem to fit properly and has basically no resistance, almost like it's just sitting on top and not really connected by fittings to the rest of the machine. Given how often you'll be using it, I've suggested that Meraki use a better quality material for this, and also for the steam arm dial, which has a similar issue. And I also haven't had this machine long enough to see how it will do in the long run. I wanted to share my experiences here with you first, but the number of small issues and replacements needed gives me pause in giving this machine a full recommendation just yet. But if all the features this machine has planned are fully realized, reliable, and the small issues ironed out in the final retail version, it would be an incredible value all-in-one espresso maker that could have a massive impact on the home espresso machine market. Just imagine if other manufacturers have to make their machines better and more affordable to compete with a machine as feature-rich as this. I'd say you have to watch this space, and I'll update you with anything else I learn about this machine. And to be clear, I haven't paid anything for this video, so if you want to support this channel, I've been working on a book for espresso lovers, and I'm almost ready to launch it on Kickstarter. It's called The Brew Ledger, and it's a journal designed to help you dial in your espresso, keep track of your recipes, and log your favorite coffees and experiments. If you want to be the first to know more about it, and when the Kickstarter goes live, join my mailing list over at homecafebycharlie.com. Thank you so much for watching, you wonderful overcaffeinated people, and I'll see you on the next one.